Thank you so much for that, Andrea. And without further ado, I'd like to kick it over to Angelique, our Director of Policy.
Thanks very much. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Angelique Espinoza. I'm the Policy Director for Good Business Colorado, and we are a grassroots organization of values-driven businesses who work to build a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable Colorado. Helping good businesses be better programming, like this program today, aims to meet business owners where they are and provide access to educational programming and a peer community of practice and wraparound supports that enable them to make their businesses even better, one innovation at a time. Today's event is the 5th of a 10-part Lunch and Learn series. We are hosting these events in communities across the whole state, but they can all be accessed virtually as well, and as you've just heard, with simultaneous Spanish translation. We will be covering a wide range of topics like today's event, which will focus on leadership and professional development for the whole team. But we also have events that lift up hiring and retention, professional practices, support businesses in improving their environmental impact, and events on operationalizing workplace equity. You can find the full list of events on the GBC website, goodbusinesscolorado.org. as well as in the participant materials folder if you are here today. So I want to thank our supporting organizations, but before I do that, I just want to welcome a very special guest that we have today, virtually dialing in. Governor Polis has been so kind to join us and say a few words on the topic of our program today and to welcome you to our program. It's so good to see you, Governor Polis.
Well, it's great to be part of your hybrid event. It's wonderful to see so many people engaged and interested in this Lunch and Learn across the state. I know we're doing a 10-part Helping Good Businesses Be Better Lunch and Learn series. And it's exciting that you have, people can be there and they can log in if they can't. And I know this event is on emotional intelligence and professional development for the whole team. In many ways, it's the soft skills that are so important in the workforce to develop as an employer and of course to be able to get promoted and managed. Thank you, Deborah. I also want to recognize Angelique Espinoza, I've known for many years, Executive Director or Policy Director of Good Business Colorado, Deborah Brown, of course, Executive Director, Nancy Zimmer, Business Service Specialist, Dan Cascabar, Coaching Culture Builder and Leadership Coach, Sydney Jackson Coxton, Heather Lundy, and Gabby Jimenez. It takes a whole team to be able to produce this event. And of course, those of you who are attending are in the role of benefiting from all of the great hard work of this group. Our really state is made better when businesses who call Colorado home have the skills they need to grow, to succeed, become civic partners, are involved with the community, making sure that Colorado remains an amazing place. Many of you know that I was a tech entrepreneur and I started several businesses. One of the most exciting, we got 100 ways to save people money through the legislature. One of them is it's only $1 to start a business now in Colorado. So that's really exciting. We remove barriers to incorporating or taking out your LLC documents, really encouraging even more people to form businesses, and new business formations are up over 12%. And we also have one of the lowest unemployment rates we've ever had, 3.3%, more people employed now than before the pandemic. And we are really excited to really help all of our businesses, and especially our small businesses, get ahead, succeed. We're really focused on workforce development. Today, I was at Arapahoe Community College, where we announced that it is now free at community colleges, including Pueblo Community College, a number of healthcare-related fields: certified nurse assistant, dental assistant, pharmacy technician, phlebotomist. These are now free for the next couple of years because of our workforce shortages and to remove that barrier to opportunity that exists. Not only free tuition, but textbooks, all that is covered. We've also focused on unlocking more housing options to have a strong economy. We need to have affordable housing for everybody.
Whoops, you've frozen up, Governor.
Below that as well. And really for housing options across the spectrum, so people can get ownership, build wealth. We want Coloradans to be able to live near where they work and be able to get ahead. We're also thrilled with efforts to get more money back in your pockets. Hopefully everybody got Colorado cash back. If you're a small business person, that's $750 or $1,500, hopefully goes right into your business, growing it. We're trying to increase transit opportunities across the state too. Transit is free in most areas of our state as well. And also for the first time in 40 years, we did a major property tax reduction, including commercial property tax for the next 2 years, 23 and 24, major reductions in the assessment rate on commercial property. That's very important because if you lease commercial property, a storefront, office space, you probably have a triple net lease and are paying those taxes that are passed along to you. And so that rate is down for 23 and 24. So not just important for property owners, but especially for those who businesses starting out, leasing a storefront, leasing space, making sure that we have a positive environment for businesses to flourish is really a key part of our agenda. Colorado, I think of every state, we've now had, after I complete this term, and if I'm elected to another one, we'll have 16 years of having an entrepreneur as governor. John Hickenlooper was an entrepreneur. He started several retail businesses, breweries. So that's relatively unique, but it fits well with the culture of our state, a culture that supports innovation and excellence, a culture that supports you in transforming an idea into reality, that helps businesses grow. This morning, I was at a really exciting business, Boom Supersonic in Littleton. They're developing supersonic commercial aircraft. And this started out with a vision and a dream from an entrepreneur, Blaine, who was a software engineer at Amazon. And he said, you know what, why is the Concorde from the 60s technology, and that was being phased out, the only supersonic aircraft available? So he put pen to paper, he raised money, he created a team, and they already have orders from United and American. And by the end of this decade, in 6 or 7 years, hopefully we'll all be able to fly and take advantage of faster supersonic service. But that's just an example of the Colorado dream, the American dream, and developing emotional intelligence and soft skills is a key part of that, both for yourselves, but also among your workforce. It's about hard skills and knowledge, and it's also about the ability to collaborate and work together. And those two things together lead to a successful team. And I know you're going to get some really thoughtful input at this roundtable about how to improve the quality of your team. Thank you, and back to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to actually just pitch it back to me. I'm pinch hitting for Deborah today because she's doing the tech. So you'll forgive me, I hope, if I stumble over any of the introduction. But thanks again for taking time out of your busy day, and safe travels. It looks like you're in the car, so hope you get where you're going safely. So without further ado, I would like to thank our sponsoring organizations without whom we could not do this programming. Our series presenting sponsor is Bank of America. Erica couldn't be here today, but wanted to share this message with you. Bank of America is so proud to support Good Business Colorado's Lunch and Learn series this year. We wish we could be with you today as you enjoy these incredible speakers. Bank of America is guided by a common purpose to help make financial lives better. They focus on clients, managing risk well, and making sure growth is sustainable. To be sustainable, they share success with the communities where employees live and work, which includes driving progress on societal priorities, including those broadly defined in the UN Sustainable Development Goals: poverty, hunger, education, affordable housing, and other key areas. Locally here in Colorado, every year they support nonprofits through grants, sponsorships, volunteers, and financial education. And as part of this work, they develop strong partnerships with nonprofit organizations who are addressing issues fundamental to economic mobility, racial equality, and social progress in low and moderate income communities. This series offered by Good Business Colorado is a great example of how businesses can join together to create an economy that works for everyone while achieving success for our planet, communities, employees, and the bottom line. Enjoy today's program, she says. We have some additional sponsors that I need to mention. Alpine Bank, which provided the nice little swag bags. If you didn't get one on your way in, please do grab one on the way out. ARC Thrift Stores, Cigna, Colorado Health Foundation, Colorado Women's Leadership Circles of Influence, and Delta Dental. Additionally, a huge shout out goes to Dwayne and his team here at the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce for hosting today's event. And we are also working with over 33 other organizations to bring the Lunch and Learn programming to the business owners they serve across the state. These are organizations that you can turn to for support and information. There are a lot of them, so I'm going to do my radio speed reading impression. Ready? African Chamber of Commerce Colorado, Asian Chamber of Commerce Colorado, B Civic, B Local Colorado, B-Side Fund, Buena Vista Chamber of Commerce, CEDS Finance, Colfax Business Improvement District, Colorado Black Chamber of Commerce, Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, Community Shares of Colorado, Denver Economic Development and Opportunity, Downtown Colorado Inc., Downtown Development Authority Fort Collins, Downtown Grand Junction, E for All, Energize Colorado, Greater Pueblo Chamber, Local First, Logan County Economic Development Corp., Metro Deep, North Metro Denver, SBDC, Partnership for Community Action, Pueblo Latino Chamber of Commerce, Regenerative Recovery Coalition Alliance Center, Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute, Salida Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Majority, Social Venture Partners, Startup Colorado, Sustainable Living Association, the American Sustainable Business Network, the Latino Chamber of Boulder County, the Commons, and the World Trade Center Denver. I used to be a singer, so. These organizations work day in and day out to support the success of business owners across the state. And finally, I want to recognize that today we are gathering in Colorado, the land of the Ute, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, and many other indigenous tribes who still live and travel here. We are committed to framing our work in the context of anti-oppression to the best of our ability. And now I would like to introduce today's moderator, Good Business's own Jason Green.
Thanks so much for that, Angelique, and impressive to get through that list. I'm always impressed every time we can recognize all of our partner organizations, but we couldn't do it without all the support from everyone. Thanks again for being here. We're just going to go ahead and get started with our panel. The first person I would love to introduce is Nancy Zimmer. She is the business service specialist for the Pueblo Workforce Center. Nancy, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Nancy Zimmer, and with me is Robin Shinastic, who's also with the Business Services representing Pueblo and Upper Arkansas Workforce Centers. Thank you for this opportunity to share how the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment can support your business and your workforce. Just wait for the slides.
Thank you. All right.
You can go ahead and go to the next one. So for those who may not be familiar with the Colorado Workforce Centers, we provide 11 core services for employers through all phases of a business life cycle, including launch, growth, sustainability, and transitions. And this is at no cost to businesses or job seekers. We encourage you to connect with us at the Pueblo, Canyon City, or Salida Workforce Centers, or reach out to your local workforce center for more information about the variety of services that we offer. We're here today to talk about emotional intelligence. That's okay. So emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand, manage your emotions and the emotions of others. Psychologist Daniel Goleman originally identified 5 key skills needed for emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions. Self-regulation, the ability to manage those emotions. And then being motivated by internal rewards of personal goals and growth. And recognizing and responding to others' emotions with empathy. And then using social skills by interacting appropriately with others, such as active listening, effective verbal and nonverbal communication. So while we recognize the benefits of emotional intelligence in personal relationships, so why is that important for business leaders? So a recent academic study actually proved that emotional intelligence can really impact your business by providing the ability to increase your capacity to make sound business decisions, build and sustain collaborative relationships, deal effectively with stress, and cope with constant change. Emotional intelligence can also help with conflict management in the workplace by helping others through tense situations, gracefully bringing disagreements into the open, and defining solutions that everyone can endorse. Emotional intelligence in the workplace really begins on the inside out of each individual, and it involves recognizing your feelings and your emotions and how that impacts your behavior and your actions in your business. It takes time to develop those skills, but what is really important is that it is learned and it is learnable. So how can we develop those skills? Several professional development opportunities are available through the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, and one of them is access to LinkedIn Learning. So maybe several of you have already taken part in some of the LinkedIn Learning programs, but this is a resource that we have free access for all our job seekers. So along with the topics displayed, there are a variety of options specifically for emotional intelligence, from 5-minute course insights to 9-hour intensive learning sessions. There's over 340 training programs on this topic alone. If you're interested in learning more about emotional intelligence, you can sign up with Connecting Colorado as a job seeker. Visit the Pueblo and Upper Arkansas Workforce Center website and select the training request under Business Services. Or again, contact your local Workforce Center directly for information on how you can access this important tool. Other training opportunities and funding specifically are available through the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. We may have resources that are available for reskilling, upskilling, and next skilling your workers, as well as apprenticeship opportunities and assistance. Again, contact us or contact your local Workforce Center for these opportunities. I also want to mention that the Colorado Community College System and the Office of Economic Development and International Trade offer, again, grant funding through Skill Advance for businesses of all size. So there is that Skill Advance information in your handouts with that. So again, to learn more about our services and programs, you can contact the Colorado Department of Labor website. ConnectingColorado.com also has a business services employers link, or you can visit us either again at the Canyon City, Pueblo, and Salida Workforce Centers. So I look forward to our continued discussion.
Thanks so much, Nancy, for sharing that information and the local resources that are available to everyone. I am going to kick it back to Angelique really quickly. So here we go, Angelique.
I forgot to introduce some other important people in the room. I wanted to introduce Antonio, whose last name I forgot. Huerta, Antonio Huerta, who is with Senator Hickenlooper's office. I'm the Governor Hickenlooper. Time work. And also our state senator, Dan Heinrichsen.
Yep, Nick Henderson.
Nick Henderson is here. I've written it, but I've never said it before. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. And with that, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Sydney Jackson Coxton, who is joining us also virtually. She's a leadership coach, speaker, and event designer with Citrine Unlimited. Sydney, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone, virtually and in person. Thanks for being here today. And Nancy did a really beautiful job of really laying out what is emotional intelligence. And I just want to add that on top of emotional intelligence and professional development, I myself being a young professional and a business owner, when I first stepped into the role of owning my own business, right, it was really scary because there wasn't any sort of development that I went through, if you think about it, through basic education that prepared me to be in this role as a manager, as a business owner, as someone who needs to collaborate with the community. And what I'm finding when I meet other young professionals or either professionals that are just, they've been out in the workforce for quite a while, and they're asked, have they received any development in these areas? I usually find the answer is no. And a lot of my research online points to no as well. So there is a big gap. And a lot of folks would say, why would I invest in this? You know, I have a lot of things that are pulling my attention, pulling money from my pocket, right? Especially as a business owner, I get it. But something that's really important to know is that when your employees, especially because we're moving into newer generations that are taking up the workforce, right? And wanting to either own their own business or work for small business owners, they really want to not only just show up to work and receive a paycheck, but they want to know that their input is valued and that they're being heard. And so that's a big piece of emotional intelligence as well. It's a great way to also get a lot of valuable feedback. Of course, as a manager, as a business owner, you don't have to take everything that everybody says and run with it. But imagine being in a room with 10 people, right? And they all have these amazing ideas and they're on your team. That means that they're actually invested in what you're doing. They actually care about what you're doing, about your business, and they want to see it thrive and grow. Like, how amazing is that? People care about what you do. And so there's a lot of value in developing that and making sure that your team feels like their input is valued, whether you go with what they're saying or not, you know? The other thing that I like to point out is helping to reduce turnover rates. A lot of times when folks don't feel like their employer is invested in them as a person and a human being, well, why should I work for you? Well, I can go do that somewhere else, right? And make more, or, you know, make the same, but have better hours or whatever. So how do you get those folks who are working for you, showing up every day, making you money, right? How do you get them to feel like they're a part of a team? And emotional intelligence is a huge piece of that, and to actually help prevent turnover. And from my experience working in corporate world, working in my own business, anytime you can prevent turnover, it's a great day, because the cost of rehiring, and I'm so sorry, someone calls me. No one ever calls me until right when I'm in the middle of a panel discussion. And it's on Google, so I don't know how to turn it off. But my point is that when you have high turnover rates, you're actually spending more on hiring and acquiring and training individuals versus just putting those funds into actually just developing the folks who you already have on your team and really investing in their growth and seeing how they can continue to benefit you as an employer. So thank you. That's all I had to say. Is I know Nancy did a full layout and we have some other great speakers where you're going to get a lot of information. And so, as you know, I took a little bit of emotional intelligence there with that phone call coming through, not to freak out and to get it covered. But point is that I really appreciate Good Business Colorado having me here. I'm a huge advocate for business owners, for small businesses. I also happen to be a trainer at Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute. And I also offer leadership development coaching for teams and individuals. So I'm going to pass the mic on over, and I appreciate you all being here and just your investment in growing as leaders, everyone that's on this call and in the room.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for sharing your wisdom. I think so much of what you said resonates, and I think that's why we're all doing the work that we do, especially at Good Business Colorado, is to make sure that the mental health is there for our business owners. It's very busy and a lot to keep up with. So thank you for sharing, and we're going to move along with our panel. At this time, I'd like to introduce Heather Lundy, the founder and CEO of Kesed Wellness. Heather, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. So my name is Heather Lundy. My pronouns are they, them, and I do have the joy of being the founder and CEO of Kesed Wellness. I'll get more into that in just a second. I am a licensed therapist by training, mental health therapist, and I have to say it's wonderful to go third and hear how emotional intelligence is talked about in all the different ways that we can access it, right? Like, we can often talk in mental health about therapy, but one of the things I love is that therapy and therapeutic experiences can happen inside the room or outside the therapy room. And speaking inside the therapy room, so Kesed Wellness, we provide affordable therapy for the underinsured. So our mission is to become the most affordable and free cash pay option for the underinsured. And not to just become, but we are. And we launched in Colorado 6 years ago. We've provided over 35,000 sessions statewide, and we center the marginalized. So who are the marginalized? Well, when it comes to underinsurance with mental health, it's most of us. The average cost of a mental health therapy session is $130. The average coverage a person receives is typically up to 6 outpatient sessions. So those are the settings that you imagine when you think of a therapy room. And KESID has 4 ways that we eliminate the roadblocks for the underinsured. So the first way is our affordable program is $60 a session. So more than 50% reduced market rate through our front door. We also have pro bono programs. So right now we have 13 active pro bono programs in the state of Colorado. Our most recent partnership is actually with Colorado Restaurant Foundation, acknowledging that around 70% of the hospitality industry is uninsured completely, and also one of the industries most impacted by the pandemic. So when the shutdowns happened in March 2020 and we noticed all our restaurants were empty, KESID raised $50,000 to provide free sessions to restaurant workers. And that's since expanded to about over 3,000 free sessions in that program. And then the Colorado Restaurant Foundation sees that the future of the industry is taking care of the people of our workers and making that possible. And so through our partnership with their Angel Relief Fund, we can offer 16 free sessions per Colorado restaurant worker. And so wherever you work, no matter where you work, those sessions are free to you. We also talk about being as generous as possible. So if you qualify for another program, you'll get more free sessions. And then a third way that we do it, which is what I'm really excited to talk to you all here in this room about, is our corporate program. So we created a program for underinsured and uninsured employers, where we can work with your budget, your size. We don't prioritize larger companies like people can often find in corporate benefit settings. We prioritize the marginalized. So those of us that typically don't believe it's even possible to access mental health therapy for our people. I launched that program in June 2021, and we now provide services to over 1,000 Colorado restaurant workers in our state. And we also create site partnerships. That's our fourth way. So we create partnerships with organizations that have part-time space appropriate for therapy. 2 years ago, we got to eliminate the therapy desert in Trinidad, and we have 2 physical sites in Trinidad. And we are growing our partnerships in other areas of Colorado that are known for mental health need and a lack of providers. Speaking of which, my partner and I are looking to buy a home in Pueblo. So I got real skin in the game here. And that to say, we know that access can both be the need for virtual care for those who don't have transportation, but also the need for culturally relevant care. So the need for in-person options for people who are locally engaged. And so that being said, I also want to acknowledge that the need for more diverse providers is core to our model. So we have Spanish-speaking therapists because that's a huge component to uninsured industries, particularly hospitality. We have therapists of color, queer therapists, those who can have mirrored experience for what the underinsured in Colorado are looking for. So that to say, there are a number of ways to build emotional intelligence. And we know that when we invest in our people, that it makes that possible. But as a fellow employer of over 50 employees right now, what I can tell you is I have compassion for the roadblocks of employers. Truly being able to afford something that truly benefits your employees and that they trust. And so that's what we're here to do. And I'm excited for all the ways we can collaborate together.
Thank you so much for that, Heather. A lot of information, and thank you for continuing the work that you do to make mental health accessible for all. So thank you so much. Our next panelist that's going to share some wisdom with us is Gabby Jimenez. She is the health promotion specialist with the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment. Go ahead and share with us, Gabby.
Thank you. Let me turn this on. Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabby Jimenez. I am a health promotion specialist at our Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment, AKA the Health Department. We have a long name. And I oversee a program. It's a grant program called Family Friendly Pueblo County. So it's focused on working with businesses on their policies to help them be a family-friendly workplace. So you might wonder, well, what does family-friendly actually mean? And how does that tie into emotional intelligence and professional development? So it focuses on this picture right here, these 8 component areas. When I work with businesses, we're looking for them to have policies in these areas. And we want them to have these because these do contribute to them being a family-friendly entity. These things provide people the support that they need to thrive at work and, of course, to take care of their families. So when I'm working with businesses, I have them complete an assessment survey, which tells me more about their demographic background info. And that helps me to see if they fit the criteria that we're looking for, which is locally Latino and women-owned businesses, preferably who employ a majority of women. And if they fit that criteria, then I'm able to look at what policies they currently have in place and what policy areas they may want to either modify or adopt. And if they do have any of those things, then it's a great fit for them to work with me on making the actual policy change. So if they do those things, they are rewarded. We provide incentives to them, Visa gift cards, other amenities for the workplace like Keurig coffee machines or popcorn machines, exercise kits, things like that to really motivate them to want to make these changes to support their staff and their families. So you might wonder though, why is this important? Why do you do this? It's important for a variety of reasons. And it's because, you know, family-friendly policies, they actually do lots of things for both the employer and the employee. They help employers with their recruitment and retention rates, absenteeism rates as well, and overall productivity in the workplace. And then for employees, of course, it increases morale, again, their productivity, their overall happiness and health in the workplace. It provides them flexibility that they might need, again, to help care for their families in a variety of ways. So with all of that being said, with these types of policies that we're looking for, these all relate back to the emotional intelligence and professional development piece, because employers do have a significant influence on employee economic stability and overall health and wellness. So if these things are in place, it's more than likely that staff are going to be happy where they are. They're going to stay where they are, and again, they're going to be productive, and that's just going to help them in the long run. So if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them after this Lunch and Learn event. And thank you very much for having me, Good Business Colorado.
Thank you so much, Gabby. And last but certainly not least, to share some words with you all, we have Dan Cascabar, coaching, culture builder, and leadership coach with Spur. Go ahead and take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Jason. So I'm a leadership coach, and what that means is I have very practical conversations with people on a daily basis. And my mission is to have employers and employees work together to create more good work. There's a lot of conversation about good jobs right now and what it means to have a good job. And so much of that is related to emotional intelligence because it has so much to do with professional development. Like Governor Polo said, those soft skills, if you don't have them, that's what's going to get you fired more often than not. I talk to employers every day, and what they tell me is, I can handle people who don't have the technical skills, I can train on that, but if they cannot communicate, if they don't know, if they're not self-aware, if they cannot engage with it as a productive presence on my team, that's when I can't help them. And so I disagree with them a little bit on that, because I think it is trainable and learnable, because it is a skill that can be learned. But the name spur, I'm a person of faith, and there's a scripture that says, spur one another on to love and good work. And it's pretty rare to find the words love and work together. I mean, you do hear people say, I love what I do, I love my work. That's getting increasingly rare, it seems, with the Great Resignation, which might be the Great Reshuffling. But really what my work is about is helping employers improve performance and well-being of their workers at the same time, right? It's this idea of love and good work at the same time. And then for employees, that they can gain financial stability, gain skills, gain the confidence that they need in order to perform at a higher level, and then add tremendous value to the companies and employers that they work for. It's incredible what happens when somebody becomes self-confident because of the way that their leader engages with them. Gallup, SHRM, Google, so many different researchers, ADP research, have come to the conclusion that 70% of the variability in performance and engagement among employees has to do with their boss. The boss is how you experience the culture and the way that your company does business. And so much of that has to do with emotional intelligence. I think, we like to think that our home life doesn't affect our work life and our work life doesn't affect our home life. But how many of us have had the experience of having a boss say, hey, I'm noticing you're not as chipper as you usually are today. Is there something I can do to help? And just noticing, I always talk to my leaders and I say, that is your first job as a leader, is to notice your people. Notice whether or not they're changing. Notice their moods, because that's something to actually walk into. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be like family. I'm not saying you have to be somebody's friend. I'm not saying you have to cross lines as a supervisor. But what you do is that you're available and you're noticing things, and you're always applying it back to the ownership of the employee that you're noticing, and say, whatever you want, giving them the opportunity to choose whether or not they want to share with you, and then being able to hold that and respond to that in really effective ways. And so that's a lot of words, but practically speaking, I mean, I can give you so many examples. And what I do is I'm a coach, so I sit one-on-one with people, and I do trainings as well in this. But, I'll give the example. Just yesterday, I was meeting with someone, and he was really frustrated with someone else in his office who was leaving cereal bowls with milk in them after, in the office at his desk. And he's like, I'm in an office space with a frat boy, is what he told me. And I said, well, okay, what are you going to do about it? Like, you're a leader and he's a leader, and it's possible he just doesn't know, right? I mean, this whole idea that we assume intentions of other people, or, what is the framework? Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance, right? And that's really it, is that there's so many assumptions that we make about the behavior and the ways that people go about things, that actually those assumptions are false. And if we take a mindset of kindness and curiosity toward other people, we can actually engage in healthy ways that helps develop each other. And that's in fact it's these practical conversations where it comes out, right? Work is a crucible. Work is this way that there are challenges in front of us all the time in our workplaces, and work is very emotional. And to say that it's not is a fallacy, right? We all experience COVID, and regardless of whether or not you God forbid, have lost a loved one, or lost your home, or lost your job during COVID, we've all experienced trauma. And there's a new term that I learned recently, that it's not necessarily PTSD, because it's not a traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's cumulative traumatic stress disorder, that actually over time, these repeated traumatic events wear us down. And I thought, wow, what a really good concept to bring into the workplace, that we all are experiencing cumulative traumatic stress disorder. And as a result, we need to be kind to each other. and when we notice other people breaking down, not being accountable for their assignments, not having responsibility, our tendency is to be volatile emotionally. And what we need to do is learn how to regulate ourselves so that we can actually be a presence of peace and kindness to the people around us. And so that's what my coaching sessions are all about. I'm not a therapist. I do not have any social work experience like Heather does and her team. Way to go with the work that you do. But one of the things that you said is really, it sticks with me, because what I tell the folks that I coach is you can have a therapeutic encounter, right, without actually being in therapy. And work can be so therapeutic when you actually have just normal everyday interactions with people and you experience kindness in the workplace, in this crucible that we call work. It can be tremendously uplifting and dignifying for us all. And that's really, those are the interactions that I try to help promote. If we can pull up my first slide, Deborah, I think where we get, right, is that we have a lack of sort of margin, which squeezes out our reflective capacity on the way that we lead. And so, yeah, here it is. This is a super cheesy diagram, but I think it's meant to be cheesy so you remember it. And what this is typically in a stressed out or anxious mindset, we just go straight from stimulus to response. And the result is it stinks, right? There's where that PU comes from, okay? So the goal is to actually move whatever it is that stinks into your own thinking and your own awareness before you respond. And this happens in teams as well. This is just not an individual exercise. It's an exercise you can take to your teams. This is one really small tool that I give to my clients. And really what we're doing is we're pausing. We're just saying, okay, let's stop because I am really agitated right now. I'm recognizing that I have a lot of stress and anxiety about what just happened. So I need to pause. I need to call a timeout. I mean, I do this with my kids all the time, and I have to do it with my kids all the time. And then, you know, you uncover, you ask the question, what's going on with me here? Where is this emotionality coming from? And a lot of times it's fear, anger, frustration, but we have to go beyond that. And so typically what I do is as I work with businesses that have a lot of frontline employees, a lot of employees who make less than $30 an hour. So we're talking about manufacturing industries, we're talking about retail, we're talking about construction, a lot of those environments that are highly stressful because they're engaged directly in the products and services and in the customer experience. And so those are stressful roles. And really the most stressful role probably is the frontline manager, who is trying to manage a lot of people who themselves are stressed out because they're not making enough money to make it work at home. I mean, they're just, many of them are not, right? If you're trying to support a household on less than $30 an hour right now in Colorado, no matter where you live, it's a challenge. I think we all know that and experience that. And so really that's where the action is. The action is in the middle manager and in the supervisor. There's a reason why it's the butt of all work jokes, right? Because it's a super stressful place, because you have the stress from the top and the stress from the bottom, and you're trying to make it all work and be this shock absorber that absorbs everything. And then I get in my coaching session. Just yesterday, I had just a second session with a very new leader. And at the end of the session, I said, what was the most helpful part of this session? And he goes, man, it's just really good to vent. And I was like, oh, like, that's disappointing. You know, hopefully there was like some tidbit or like, you know, moment of glory I had in giving you some amazing advice. But that's not really what some people, they just need a place to vent because there's so much pressure. Right. And so being able to have that experience within his workplace and literally come right off the manufacturing floor, have a conversation with me, go, oh, like, take a deep breath and go, that was really great. And now I'm ready to be a leader again. Those are experiences that are so important. So I'll stop talking because I tend to talk a lot. So I'll stop and we can talk about more.
No, you did a great job. Just for the sake of time, we do want to open it up for Q&A, but just as a heads up, we will be around until around 1:30 for folks that want to continue to ask questions. I know Heather has to leave right away, but we don't want to do an abrupt stop to the discussion. So we will open it up to any questions in person, also virtually, and then there are some things we want to make sure that we take care of before we head out. So are there any questions from home, virtually, or in person that we can ask of our amazing panelists today? right. Well, I know one question is, knowing all of the challenges that business owners are facing, obviously trying to then take on emotional intelligence from their employees, what would be a piece of advice that you would give someone that's kind of overwhelmed or unsure of where to get started with this topic? That can be for anyone who wants to answer.
I'm happy to answer. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. Something that I share with a lot of folks is to create what I call like a wellness toolbox. I know it sounds corny, but really, taking care of overwhelm is very specific to each individual. And the way that folks react to overwhelm is very specific. And so something to really take into account is when you start recognizing. So I really like how Dan had mentioned, especially with part of his method, is the pause piece. It's like having the awareness to pause, to freeze, to think about it, to actually notice what's happening before the blow up takes place or the shutdown takes place, and to recognize when you are paused, when it's like, okay, this is becoming too much. What do I do? So for some folks, that means reaching out to get support. So if it's in a workplace setting, having some sort of policy in place where it's like, okay, what does it look like? Do we offer mental health wellness days? I've actually worked for some employers that do offer that, or understanding to it. It might be a personal day you're taking, but they understand, oh, this is for mental health. Like they just need some time. Or being able to at least trust and build trust so that employees can communicate with their employer, hey, like this is going on and I just need maybe half an hour, whatever, group, take some breaths and come back to it. But I think a big piece is a lot of times folks don't make the time, and it feels like a luxury, right? And it is a luxury, especially when you have other things going on in your life, but to be able to like do something for yourself. So that could be anything. Some people like art, go to a painting class or pick up a coloring book. Even if you can't afford a painting class, you can afford at the dollar store a $1 coloring book and some dollar crayons, right? For others, that could be going on a walk. Maybe you're not a runner. I'm not, unless something's chasing me. But like just going on a walk, right? Doing walking meetings. That's something I love doing in the summer and fall, right? Is instead of meeting people over food and coffee, let's go to the botanical gardens or wherever and get outside and walk and talk. So I think there's a lot of things that people can do to help combat overwhelm, but it really involves you figuring out for yourself what's in that wellness toolkit for yourself. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice.
Thanks so much for that. Sydney, anyone else want to address the same question?
Sure, I'll add on to that. So I provided a resource list that will be available in PDF form. You can also go to kessedwellness.com/resources, and Kesed is a Hebrew word. It's spelled K-H-E-S-E-D. But I bring that up because finding resources to support overwhelm can feel overwhelming. And we created that list so that there could be easy reference points, and also acknowledging, I so appreciate Sydney bringing up mind, body, spirit, right? What a person needs to access is unique to them and unique to their culture. And some people need group experiences. Some people need alone time. Some people need a facilitator to help them. This idea of pausing that we're talking about is rooted in theoretical orientations in mental health, which is a really big word to say, methods for how we help people grow awareness. It's also rooted in religious traditions, like Buddhism talks a lot about the idea of pausing. And so I think honoring whatever your access point is for expanding your awareness and finding support beams can be so important, because something that we need to acknowledge in overwhelm is that sometimes intrapersonal inside of you, there could be things going on, whether it's, talking about the physical, your hormones are imbalanced. That affects your mood. Your neurotransmitters not firing the way they need to. That's a really fancy way of saying that's the part of your brain that helps you feel balance. But then overwhelm can also happen interpersonally between us, which I think is where coaching and all these other things come up. And so understanding what prevents you from being able to pause. can be such an important part of learning more about yourself and also your relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Anyone else want to address that same question? And then we may have one. Do we have one from online?
A comment.
A comment. Sure.
I'll address that.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah, just I think one other piece that's been really helpful for me is it really does start with the emotional self-awareness. It's about self-awareness first, because when you can start to name your own feelings, you can start to understand where to go from there. I have a quick story about an owner that I was working with. She's a retailer who has a general manager, and she was feeling a lot of stress because she's wanting to potentially sell her business in the pretty near future. And she wasn't sure that the general manager is the one that could actually take over the business, although she wanted that person to be. But her assumption was the general manager had no long-term interest in the business. At the same time, another one of my team members was coaching the general manager, and her anxiety was that she really wanted to take over the business, but she wasn't sure how the owner would feel about her sharing that. And so they were literally missing each other because they had made incorrect assumptions about each other, and they just hadn't talked about it. And so being able to address the fact that, number one, they had these anxieties happening inside of them, and that was affecting their behavior toward each other. And then number two, recognizing that part of that anxiety came from the fact that they hadn't paused together, and they weren't having team meetings. So the simple solution was start having team meetings on a regular basis so you can start to engage and develop trust with each other instead of being in a state of putting out fires. And sure enough, eventually they were able to have this conversation within about a month. That went really, really well. And they were so excited that they were actually on the same page together. She was excited, the general manager, about being worked up and developed into this role of potential owner. We're talking about a 21-year-old who could be the owner of a retail franchise in a few years. I mean, she was so excited about that. And then on the other end, the owner was so excited to have her time freed up so that she could become semi-retired and do more work of mentoring other women. And so there was just this huge opportunity that was lying in waiting, right? And just needed to be activated through first self-awareness and then creating space together.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's been so many amazing comments, and for the sake of time, I at least want to close out formally our event today. For those of you that want to stay, again, we'll hang around for a little bit longer. But again, thank you so much for joining us in person, and to the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce for hosting us this afternoon, and for joining a lot to us. And it's been really great conversations. I am new here at Good Business Colorado and have learned so much just in my first year here doing these lunch events here. So it's been an absolute pleasure. We really want to make sure that you take time to do the survey. There is a survey, there is a QR code as well as a link. We do have the survey in both English and Spanish. And these surveys are immensely important to us so that we can continue striving for the things that matter to you all. So that's why we have the surveys in there. So if you have just a couple of minutes, please take the time to complete the survey. For those of you at home, it's always a question, but we will also send out all of the resources that were covered today, as well as the slideshow presentation. There will be a recording in English and Spanish upon request of the presentation that you can share with others. But again, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you to Deborah, who's doing the tech today. It's been weird being with the mic. We're normally switched, but we're making it happen. Angelique, again, to Governor Polis for making those opening remarks. A huge thank you to our panelists once again for sharing your wisdom. I think this is such a valuable discussion. I think, 3 in 10 adults are struggling in Colorado alone with mental health or substance abuse. So that could be a lot of folks that we know. So this is definitely not the beginning, or sorry, the end of this type of conversation, but only the beginning. So feel free to reach out to our panelists or ourselves if you want to connect with anyone at all. But again, please do the survey. Thank you so much for coming. Our next event is going to be on September 14th, and this event will be in Aurora. The topic is going to be focused on tools to make sure that your business is effective. Again, that is September 14th. And then I'm going to do a shameless plug because we're very excited to have our end of year awards event. So please save the date for October 20th. That's going to be our awards event. We could not, again, be as successful in our organization without all of you. So October 20th will be our awards event. look out for emails, social posts, and it's going to be in Broomfield at the Roots Gathering, the Roots Catering and Event Center. But yeah, that's our plug. So thanks for coming. Are there any other questions though? Because I know that we can hang out for just a little bit longer. But again, thanks for joining if you have to sign off at 1 o'clock.
I do have a comment I'd like to make real quick.
I'm going to bring in the mic real quick so our interpreter can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
With a little game show hosty here.
Wasn't planning on all that. Okay, thank you. First, I want to say thank you for this forum because this was very informative. Paula is the only person here who will know what I'm talking about. But when I first started my business plan 5 years ago, the first thing I wanted to do was to make sure that my the business, I have a business owner and I have a sewing business. But one of the main things I wanted to do was to be able to mass produce, one, to reinvent that, reignite that, but also to create a family-friendly environment in the workplace. And I forgot that. And so, so thank you for that, because the pause, that was my regular routine. When I had my shop in Pueblo West, if I got irritated, overwhelmed, aggravated, whatever, I would go in my office, close the door, stay in there. If the door was closed, everybody knew, just let her just calm down. When she calms down, she'll come back out, she'll tell you why she was upset and why it's over. But I forgot that because now I'm a part of a co-op. And so I don't have that space to pause, or I forgot that I do have a place to pause. And so that was very informative as well. So thank you so much for that, because I think that more than anything, I do want to revive clothing manufacturing in this country. And I believe that we're going in that direction, but I needed to be reminded of what my original goals were in doing that. I want to be able to produce in this country, but I also want family-friendly environment so that people feel comfortable going to work and knowing their kids are all right, that their needs are being met, that they don't have to scrape and scrape and to get to this place. So that was my comment, to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think with COVID, we all took so much pause, and it seemed like we all rushed to get back to life as we knew it. And so I think it's such a great reminder for everyone just to remember to be present.
People that we will be sending the slides and recordings. Yeah, you just okay.
Yeah, so once again, we will be sending out the resources, the slides, as well as the recording. And there will be a Spanish recording upon request if that's helpful. And then anything else, Deborah?
That's all the question in the chat.
Any other questions in person? Yeah, please.
So I'm just wondering if people have thoughts about for the employer themselves. So an employer who may be struggling with their own mental health, an employer who may need to reach out for services. What are those sources that are available for the employer? Not just to take care of their employees, but to also take care of themselves and their own families.
I was just going to jump in and say it's the same resources, to be honest with you. It's the exact same resources. I know we are, at least I can't speak for everyone else. I was speaking more from the employer taking care of employees and their team, but it's all the same resources. That doesn't mean that you have to necessarily, if you help support your team with a certain therapy group like Heather, or coaching with someone like myself or Dan, that you have to go the same route and use the same exact resource, but it's the same tools, in my opinion, that will serve you as a leader to take care of yourself. So I would say it's the same. It's just up to your discretion on whether you use the same resources as your employees or not.
Thanks so much for that, Sydney. Did anyone else want to comment on that question at all?
Yeah, I think there's a lot we could say about it, but I would add just one thing to what Sydney said, and that is finding a mentor, I think, is a great source of emotional well-being, because they've gone before, and owning your own business while starting and then forming and then really rolling with it. Those are all different stages. And it can be a hugely taxing and difficult and emotional process. And so there are a number of even like support groups out there, you know, for entrepreneurs. And so I would encourage people to find those resources and find someone who's gone before you. Even it doesn't necessarily have to be in your own industry. It could just be someone who's going through the same experiences and feeling the same things that you're currently feeling and has gotten to the other side.
Thanks so much, Dan. Anyone else? All right. Any further questions, comments?
Do you all have any questions for each other?
We're not trying to veer
I do
off.
have a question.
Yes, I'm going to bring the mic
Are we
again.
still recording or just?
Are we still-
No, yeah, it's still.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this just for the interpreter, and thank you so much for playing along.
Hi, my name is Paula Robin. I am a SBDC consultant, and I am also actually myself success coach. And my question is, I see business moving to a whole new spectrum, and this is a great conversation to begin. You know, how do we open that monologue for it to be okay to have emotions, to feel things, to experience life on this whole different level? Because instead of just plowing through, okay, here's the goal, we're headed straight for the result. Now we're going to weave in there and notice people, acknowledge them, accept them, and work with them. And so being heard, like you said, some people just want to be heard. I listen to people all the time and they're just, I just needed to voice this, and then I could hear myself. So what do you experience, or what do you see as that transition? I see you're a beginning for it, but where do you see that today and then in the future?
I spoke first last time. If anybody else wants to.
I don't want to be a mic hog. So I think, so to just one clarifying question, how does that transition happen within one particular business, or how does the whole like ecosystem of employment, shift? Okay, so it's the ecosystem. Yeah. So I think what's going to happen is that employees, once they start experiencing employers who are engaging in this work, they're going to start demanding that employers provide these services because it's so helpful. And my personal belief is that this is tied directly to business results. That when you care for a whole person and give them the confidence to start providing really helpful feedback in your business, rather than just shutting up and you know, staying on the line or whatever it is, but you start to engage and your employees start to be comfortable with that psychological safety to bring their voice back to their leaders, that they're going to actually be the most innovative companies, and the most innovative companies are going to win. And so they're going to start grabbing all the other employees. This is my hope, right? I mean, but I can see this happening because I think you already see it happening with a lot of the companies that are out there who are engaging in this space. I know that some of my clients have taken market share because what ends up happening is you don't have the typical labor problems in the industry anymore. Like you don't have supervisors babysitting, that's what they call it, their employees, and their employees are self-managing. When you have self-managing employees, your supervisors can start to think about higher level problems, right? Because they have more margin. When they're thinking about higher level problems, more can be delegated from the senior leaders and from the C-level. And then they can start to think more strategically rather than having to work all of the little problems that actually can be managed by people down the line, right? And so you get way more efficient, way more productive companies who actually create a culture that is one that is aspirational, and it creates a brand where vendors and customers are drawn to it. And when that happens, you are creating an entire ecosystem where you are the center as that employer of providing that kind of value. And I think that is what's going to happen. All of the talent is going to realize, oh, this exists, this can exist. Especially, what did Governor Polis say? 3.3% unemployment. More people are employed in the state of Colorado right now than were before the pandemic. That's really legit numbers. And when you get to that kind of thing where employees actually, they have the power, right? It's a retention play and they can choose to go to a different company. And I know we're talking about a recession, but there is tremendous opportunity for companies that continue to be innovative in this environment. Whenever there's a lot of disruption, there's a lot of opportunity. And these are the companies that are going to capitalize on that disruption because they have the margin all the way through the organization to be able to tackle that disruption in a way that another company that's just trying to put out fires in no way has the opportunity to tackle.
Yeah, I completely agree with Dan. I think, you know, yesterday I was at lunch with a friend and she just got a brand new job as like lead HR for a nonprofit. And she was talking about how she's noticed her benefits have changed and just the difference because she wanted a better working situation. Her last job, they got a new CEO and you know how that works. Things change and people leave and it ended up being 90% of the folks left the organization, which says a lot. And then the CEO ended up just giving 2 days notice and left. So she's at a new organization now. And I was talking to her and I was like, well, I work part-time for Rocky Mountain Microfinance. I said that earlier. And they give us enrichment funds, which I had never experienced as an employee, is receiving a set of money to actually enrich myself. And that could be if I wanted, like this year, I wanted a fishing license and a fishing pole. And I was able to use that money to get my fishing license and my fishing pole. Or if I needed to use that to go take a class, I could. Some of my coworkers, because they also give us enrichment specifically for DEI work. One of my coworkers wants to improve her Spanish so that she can connect with more community members. So she's been taking Spanish classes for the last 6 months and it was paid for. So I think, like Dan's saying, people are going to start demanding and start going to the organizations that are attractive that can provide them with enrichment. And enrichment, you know, depending on what you look like as an employer, that doesn't always have to equal dollar signs necessarily. It could mean a lot of things. So it's kind of up to that org to figure out how to be innovative and what works for their budget and how they can make it happen. But folks are getting smarter. They're not just working and staying at a job for 40 years and walking away with a pension. Like, I don't know anyone in my age bracket where that exists, that has that going on. And so it's definitely important to see the shift that's happening. And I appreciate that you called that out. I'm a fan of servant leadership. So I can see a lot of orgs switching to that model where instead of a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach where a lot of the power and the idea generation can come from those who are working on the ground floor level. And it's really benefiting everybody from the bottom up, the top of the chain. So that's something maybe to look into and do some research around is what is servant leadership? How does that model work? Colorado's super innovative. I know we're one of the best states that really does a lot with like cooperative work. I talk to other business owners in other states and they're like, what's a cooperative? Like that's a potential model. So there's different things that we can do to be innovative. And I appreciate that you asked that question. And I think just by us all being here and being on this call today, it does show the direction that we're headed in. Because I know 10, 15 years ago, to be talking about mental health, to be talking about woo-woo feelings, right? In a business setting would have been a no-no and considered unprofessional. And so we're really asking now, what is professional? What does that even mean? And who's deeming what is what to be professional? So, yeah.
I have one comment you could speak in there for yourself. This could be like culture creation for employers.
Yeah.
I agree that this could definitely be culture creation for employers as well. I think, yeah, just even listening to everyone and even working at GBC, it's been a different employment experience for myself personally. And so it's just, we are looking at what's important and what it means to be an employee and an employer. I think it is definitely evolving. So I definitely, I feel that even where I work, so.
Oh, sorry. I just keep grabbing the mic. But I'm going to bounce off Sydney. We'll just bounce it back and forth here, Sydney. and say, we talk a lot about, how, feelings are kind of woo-woo and that stuff. And it is true that there are folks who still think that way and feel that way. What I usually say to those folks, because I do work with a lot of folks in blue collar, right? And I joke that, part of my job is teaching blue collar folks how to get in touch with their feelings. But it really is, feelings have always been present and they've always been expressed. It's just that there are some that have been acceptable: anger, frustration from a supervisor, right? Those are permissible emotion. That's permissible emotionality, right? And so to say that it has never existed is just, it's ridiculous. It's existed in really negative forms. And so what we're trying to do is challenge that and say, look, there's a full spectrum of emotions. One of my tools is the emotion wheel. And it just helps people name what they're actually feeling and what's underneath, because, part of what I say is like anger is actually a secondary emotion. There's actually something behind it that's making you act in that way. And it's usually something like fear or there's a ton of different reasons why you can lash out in anger. And I've experienced that for myself. I'm not an expert in not getting angry. I'm actually quite the opposite. So, and my wife will tell you that. But to acknowledge that emotionality has always been present, I think is such an important part of the process of getting to health in organizations. And I love what you said, Paula, like it is culture transformation, because you're actually saying, look, we have a value that says we treat people with respect, right? Almost every organization has respect as a value, right? In some form or fashion. And yet your supervisors yell at people and point their fingers. And that's the way that accountability works. It's completely two-faced, right? And so how do we actually get to integrated organizations that live by their values?
Thanks so much. Are there any further questions? I know that we're going to go ahead and wrap our session. Anyone at home, last chance to ask our panelists if any questions, and in person as well, any further questions, and we can continue mingling here as well. But awesome. Well, again, thank you for everyone for joining at home and in person. Thank you to our panelists as well. It's been an amazing discussion. Again, I'm Jason. Thanks for allowing me to be your moderator today, and we're looking forward to seeing you all in September, if not sooner. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you so much. Everything was awesome.